Hello everyone. So I had posted this picture on my Instagram and my social media, and then had mentioned it in a recent video. Got a whole bunch of different questions and inquiries and whatnot. So I thought I would just film a quick dedicated video. So this is how I store the blending sponges for my Distress Oxide inks. A lot of people asking why I choose this. Yeah, anyway, Distress Oxide inks only come in the full-size pads. They do not come in the minis like the regular Distress inks. Let me just pull out a couple. Tim Holtz has said with every release of Distress Oxides that they don't have plans on doing the minis. He's explained it in detail about the chemists have not been able to stabilize the oxide ink because it's a hybrid ink and it's very, sorry, the reflection is causing my camera to go wonky. And it's not been able to stabilize on something so small, etc. It took 10 years from the release of the regular size Distress inks to make minis. Anyway, so as of right now and the foreseeable future, they're only available in the large size. Now, why I even said that is because with the Distress ink minis, I keep the sponges stored in the bottoms of the minis because they just fit perfectly. I don't need any Velcro or anything, and I can keep the foams face in like so. So then all I have to do is stick them and use them. So that's great. Another FYI, a lot of people asking, like, telling me they're tearing their foams, like, I never have issues, but also FYI, make sure when you're removing your foams from the tool that you're grabbing the base of it. Like, not the foam. Don't pull from the foam. If you're pulling from the foam, you are going to tear it because it's foam. But the base is where I grab it. And the newer ones have an even more, like, some of my foams are pretty old, but I've noticed the newer ones have a more, like, it's firmer, the black part of it. So that's where I grab it by. So that's that. So with the full-size ink pads, obviously a foam isn't just going to sit. They also will not work on the inside. I've tried that. The lid isn't deep enough, so then it's pressed in. One, the foam is pressed in. Two, the lids will not close all the way. I don't like that. Plus, I don't like storing any sort of blending foam on any ink surface, let alone the oxides, because then the foam is too saturated with ink. And I've shown this before, like when I have my foam on my blending tool, I like to wipe off some of the excess ink and then blend it onto my project. And if it's been sitting in here and it's like soaked with ink, I'm like, you're just wasting ink in my opinion. So that's another thing I don't like, but also because the lid won't close. Option number 3 was taping the foams, and I used to do that. I still have tape on a bunch of these. And I would have the foams, and you can see it just tore to heck, but I would have the foams face down and would tape them. And that worked. With tape, it worked because it would stay flat and I'd be up. But the issue was I couldn't then stack my ink pads, and I stack them when I'm using them. You know, or if you just want to stack them for storage. So if you have the foams, you can't do that. Like, you can stack a couple, but then they're going to topple over. Another option people were saying was they've been sticking Velcro on the bottom of their ink pads and then sticking the foams to the Velcro, which works, but it causes it to stick out further, in my opinion, and then the ink is getting absolutely everywhere. Oxide ink on your surfaces, it gets on your ink pads again if you're stacking them because they're face down. It just creates a mess. I don't like that. That's not how I wanted. So this is what I came up with, and I've been really happy with it. So I've just got this is a snap binder by Simple Stories. I'll link to it in the description box. I like the size because it's a bit smaller. It's a 6x8 binder. And then I have the Snap Insta Pocket Pages. These are 2x2 pages, and there's 12 per page. You can get a full-size binder and get coin protector pages. The only reason I didn't do that is because I just didn't want to bother. This was cuter, and I like that these are 12 per page, which for Distress and Distress Oxides, that's perfect, because there's 60 ink pads, and they come generally in sets of 12. So this works perfectly. Right now I have 3 pages for the current ones. A new set was just released, so it'll be another 12, and then the final set, 12. So I have all my little pages. I just insert the foams into each section. I've labeled them with my label maker, just like so. And then when it's time to go use whatever color I want, I can pull it out, pop it onto a foam, and I'm good to go. People are saying, do I get ink on my fingers? Yes. Like, I get ink on me. I just wipe my fingers with a baby wipe when I'm working. I don't have a problem with it. No matter what. If you have the space, you could have dedicated handles with the foams and then never have to take them off. But then that does take up a significant amount of space. Maybe someday I'll be able to do that, but for me right now, I don't have the space and I don't have 60 handles. I'm slowly collecting more and more over time. But yeah, and then same thing. I grab it, I kind of get my finger under and I grab the base of the foam and pull it off. And I've been using this for years. I've so far only had to replace one foam, not of oxides. Oxides have only been out for like a year and a half. But with my Distress inks, I've literally only had to replace one so far. That I used it so much that I pretty much destroyed the black part. Like, it just started literally coming apart, and that was my Tumble Glass Distress ink. So I don't have a problem. You know, I use these a lot. I pull them off. So far, all of my foams have been fine. And like I said, the newer ones have a firmer base to them. And yeah, I just slip them in. These inks don't dry really much at all. Like, they're still moist, especially the ones that have, like my blacks that I was saying this in my last video. Like, this one's like juicy. So yeah, I just wipe my fingers off on a baby wipe so that I don't end up smearing my project. And I just keep this handy when I'm working. And then that works. So this way I can keep them all organized. Maybe down the road I'll organize them like in rainbow order or something once I have all of the oxide inks. But yeah, this works for me. Oh, another thing, someone was saying, they were like, do I have foams for the oxides and the Distress inks? Yes. I keep the Distress inks with the ink pads, the oxides here, and I do not mix them, and I don't recommend you mix them. You do not want to be mixing these inks with the foams. Like, you're going to start contaminating your ink pads. They're completely different inks. And you'll start noticing if you're using them frequently. If you're mixing a foam and using it in an oxide, and then the next time you go and use it in your Distress ink, you're going to start contaminating those inks and you're not going to get the same results. So I highly recommend having separates. Someone else was saying they wash their foams between uses. Again, I don't recommend that, mostly because a pack of foams is pretty cheap. I think there's like 20 in the pack. It's a few dollars. And like I said, I've been slowly collecting because the handles come in sets of 2 with a few foams. But you only need, a couple. But I've been slowly collecting more and more handles because sometimes, like my last project, I used like 15 Distress oxide inks and I had all my little handles out. The reason though that I don't recommend washing, like if you it's a big time. It takes a ton of time. You gotta wash them, let them dry. I don't have time for that. 2, I like my foams to be seasoned. Like I said, I don't like them to be completely saturated with ink, because I want, but when there's some ink in here, they work better. Whereas like a brand new foam, it's gonna take a little while. It'll take a little bit of use to get that ink in there, to get a smoother blend. People have not, like if you're having difficulties with blending, make sure you're really getting ink into your foam. Get it in there, rub it onto some scratch paper. Like once you have a good disbursement of ink, and then, like I said, I'll wipe off a little bit of the excess onto scratch paper and then bring it to my project, and I get a much smoother blend. When it's a brand new foam though, it can sometimes get more streaky because there's only ink on certain parts of it. So if you're having trouble with that, like make sure you really get the ink on there, and then you'll find you're gonna get better results. And then my other last random, if you're having trouble with cardstock, try Bristol Smooth cardstock. I use that a lot. You get a really nice blend with both Distress ink and oxides and other brands of dye inks with Bristol Smooth cardstock. So I hope that answered all the questions I was asked. I also label the sides of my ink pads. People have noticed my little swatches. This is just a random little heart punch, and I honestly don't even know where it is. I got it like Michael's or something forever ago. It's just a cheap heart punch, but it was in my stash, so I just rubbed the ink pad onto cardstock, let it dry, punched it out, just so I have a visual of what color is which. But you can use a circle punch or just trim down little pieces of paper, whatever works for you. But yeah, I label the side of my ink pad, add a little swatch, and I do that to 2 sides just to make it easier. You could do all 4, but I don't have time for that. So I do that to be able to just see at a glance when I have either of them stacked and I can't see the tops. This way I can see, you know, the name as well as the color just at a glance, and then I know, you know, what I want to grab. And then I've got my little binder with my foams. And then, oh, that was the last question. Swatches. People are saying like, oh, this would work rather than having your ink swatches. Like, just use this. I still recommend having ink swatches. I haven't done it yet. But I'm going to have ink swatches and I'm going to keep them separately. I don't want to get my ink swatches covered in fresh ink, but I'm going to have my swatches because the ink looks different on cardstock than it does on the foam, especially oxide ink. You want your swatch to see how it looks on paper, plus have an area where you add a little bit of water to it, because oxide inks, you know, react with water, look completely different. So I wouldn't use these as my ink swatch because, like, looking at some of these colors sometimes, they don't look like that. Like, Squeeze Lemonade in on the foam almost looks green. So yeah, that's my last little bit. I would do, like, I'm going to use the same, that's why I got so many of these inserts. I'm going to do swatches and have them in separate in their own little things, and swatches I'll have double-sided because you can put 2 in, so you can use both sides, whereas these don't really fit 2 ink foams. Like, that would create a huge mess if I had a, you know, the second foam like behind here trying to like pull them out, and it would also mix up the inks eventually. So I keep 1 per little section, keep them all labeled, and then we're good to go. So I hope that answered all the questions about why I store my ink sponges for the oxides the way I do, all the reasons behind it, etc. If you're still watching, I will have a little giveaway on my blog with this post. I have 4 brand new oxide inks in 4 of my favorite colors. So Cracked Pistachio, Squeeze Lemonade, Worn Lipstick, Mermaid Lagoon. I also have these extra brand new Distress Ink minis. So I've got Festive Berries, Aged Mahogany, Bundled Sage, Pine Needles, and Chipped Sapphire. And then last but not least, I actually have a random brand new Distress Crayon as well in Peacock Feathers. So I'm going to give this little bundle away to one of you guys. If you are interested in winning it, just head on over to my blog. It'll be the first link in the description box below the video. And then there'll be info in the post on how you can enter with the little Rafflecopter widget and whatnot. And then, yeah, I will link to everything individually as well. It'll be linked below the post or below the video in the description box as well as on my blog. And yeah, thank you all, as always, for thumbs upping my videos, for subscribing. If you've subscribed, make sure you hit the little bell notification, and then there's actually a drop down apparently now under the bell, and you can choose to be notified of all my videos. I try very hard to post almost a new video at least once a day. You know, I post frequently, so there's that. Thank you so much for commenting, the feedback, everything, and following me on social media, all of it. I really, really appreciate it. So I like being able to do little giveaways here and there. So this one, I also have another giveaway still going on. I will link to that video here. There's a current giveaway still happening as we speak, and I will have more planned. I keep saying that, but I do keep adding them as I'm able to. So stay tuned. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all very soon in another video. Bye.